Shabbat Shalom, everyone. In the summer of 1829, I recently read that author Victor Hugo approached his publisher, promising that he would write a new, wonderful book in the next 12 months. 12 months passed, and his publisher calls upon him. So where's this book? I haven't written the first word, he said. So his publisher gave him a new deadline, this time 6 months. But months went by, still not a word. Turns out that Victor Hugo just couldn't start writing. He thought about it. He was focused on it. He had every intention of doing so, but it didn't happen. And so one day, just a few months from the deadline, the second deadline that his publisher had given him, as winter was setting on, he turned to his assistant and he handed her all of his winter clothes. He said, "I want you to lock these up until I finish my book." Forcing himself to stay in his house and work, for he had no clothes to go out in the cold weather of winter with. And in just a few short months, he finished the book, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, a month before the deadline. How often do we have every intention of doing something, but find that we think about it, we talk about it, and yet we end up in a guilt-ridden trap that we've set for ourselves, having not accomplished what we told ourselves we would do. Not quite like Victor Hugo, but for myself, when I was in college, there was a series of rooms in the basement of the library, no windows, and you had to ask for a key. And the rooms were no bigger than maybe 8 by 10. And I would lock myself in there to get my work done, because if I was sitting in a room with a television and a refrigerator and other things that could easily distract me, it would take me hours to get a 1-hour assignment done. How often do we have to find a way to trap ourselves, to force ourselves to get something done that we've told ourselves is important? We have these lofty expectations, and then we fall hard, and we beat ourselves up about it so often. When in fact, it's not that we failed, it's that we never really got started. Author James Clear refers to this as the difference between being in motion and taking action. He says motion feels like progress, talking about working out, talking about a diet, thinking about what you want to write in your book, talking about reaching out to a friend in need, or telling yourself or even others, I've been meaning to call that cousin that I never speak to. It relieves some little semblance of guilt that we have because we know we want to do it, but we have yet to do it. And so Clear reminds us that being in motion is not the same as taking action. Tonight we read the 10 Commandments, and as we hear the words that remind us that we are to have only one God, no idols, to cherish the sanctity of Shabbat, to honor our parents and honor society by protecting property and life, to not murder or steal, to honor our neighbors, our spouses, and our children by not coveting what is not ours. As we read those words, I don't question that each of us wants to keep these commandments. We all want to keep them, but I wonder to what degree we have a plan to do so. Or are we just in motion, telling ourselves that we're making progress, but not having any data to back it up? The commandments that God gives us in the Torah portion this week are not things to think about, they are actions to take. Rabbi Heschel wrote in his book, God in Search of Man, precisely this: that we don't judge ourselves by what we say we're going to do, we judge ourselves by what we've done. In his words, It is in deeds that humanity becomes aware of what our life really is, of our power to harm and hurt, to wreck and ruin, of our ability to get joy and bestow it upon others, to relieve and to increase our own and other people's tensions. It is in the employment of our will, not in reflection, that one meets his own self as it is, not as he wants it to be. It's in our deeds that we expose what is imminent as well as what has been suppressed, he says. What we may not dare to think, what we say we won't do, is often precisely what we have found we have done, and so too, it is in our deeds that our true heart gets revealed. We judge ourselves by what we do, not by what we hope to do, not by what we plan to do. So how can we get it done? In the same book, in which he talks about motion and action, Clear shares a 2001 study of how successful people were in exercising. 250 people were studied. I find it fascinating. The goal of the study was to see what it takes to get someone to exercise for 20 minutes a week. And so the study created 3 groups. The first was the control group. This group was told, your goal is to exercise for 20 minutes a week and to track how well you do in reaching that goal. The second group, they were given those same goals, but they were also required to read materials that explain the immense benefits of exercise, how it extends the length of your life, how it prevents heart disease, how it makes you happier on a daily basis. And then to track how well they achieved the goal of exercising for just 20 minutes a week. The third group, they were told the goal, they were given the reading materials, and then they were asked to complete the following in writing every week. During the next week, I will partake in at least 20 minutes of vigorous exercise. And then they had to write down a specific day, a time, and location. I will exercise on Thursday at 2 p.m. at the gym. Just one sentence they had to write every week. Groups 1 and 2, the control and the group with the reading material, both had the same results. 1/3 of people in both those groups exercised for at least 20 minutes. There was no difference between the people who just said they were going to exercise and those who read all the material about how important it is to exercise. But group 3, who wrote that one sentence, 90% of the people in that group exercised for at least 20 minutes because they wrote down when and where they were going to accomplish this task. This is what many of us experienced just this week as we began our Jewish Black Dialogue with House of the Lord Church. I hope for those who didn't join us that you'll go back and review the videos and catch up with us and join us for the next 2 weeks. But as I thought about this year, I thought about how much of this year or even years I spent just in motion, wanting to work on racial justice, wanting to work against anti-Semitism. I thought about it and talked about it, and so did you, and we talked about it together, and we've been moving around on these issues all the time. But the truth is, most of that time, I was just in motion, not going anywhere. I wasn't in action. I wasn't doing anything. I felt like I was, but I look back, and until someone set a date and a place and a time for us to be somewhere and do something, that work didn't really begin. And so as we hear the commandments tonight, I hope we can listen with our thumb on the scale toward action, not just motion. Let's not just declare that we will honor our parents, observe Shabbat, or humble ourselves before the powers greater than us in the world. Let's make time to do these things. And not because we'll feel guilty if we don't, but because we know that we aren't measured by how much we know about the commandments or how often we talk about them. We've always measured ourselves, as Heschel said, by our deeds, by how well we do them. And so I encourage you, as you listen to our yearly recitation of the commandments this evening in a few moments, that you find one that you want to focus on, and that you make a date for yourself, a time and a place where you will practice it, so that we can be judged by our deeds, not just by our words. Shabbat Shalom.